Section 8 of Journal of the Reverend Francis Asbury, Volume 2. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Brian Keenan. Sunday 14. I preached twice. Next day, Monday, our conference began. Our business was conducted in great peace and love. The business of the council came before us, and it was determined that the concerns of the college and the printing should be left with the council to act decisively upon, but that no new canons should be made, nor the old altered, without the consent of the conference, and that whatever was done on this head should come in the shape of advice only. We had some quickening seasons and living meetings. Several young people came under awakenings. Wednesday 17. I preached on, "If thou take forth the precious from the vile, thou shalt be as my mouth." It was a searching season. Several spoke and prayed, and we had noise enough. The evening before, an extract of sundry letters from New York and Baltimore was read in the congregation, at which saints and sinners were affected. But we have not a sufficient breastwork. Our friends are too mute and fearful, and many of the outdoors people are violent and wicked. I have had a busy, trying time for about 9 days past, and I have hopes that some hundreds in this city will be converted by this time next year. Our conference resolved on establishing Sunday schools for poor children, white and black. Friday 19. We rode to Edisto. At Guam's I preached on the Great Salvation. There appeared to be attention, and some were affected. Saturday 20. Was a dry time at Linder's. Brother Watcoat preached. I was very unwell with a headache. Sunday 21. We had a better season at Cattle Creek on Malachi 3:1. May God arise to help these people, and revive and work mightily for and amongst them. Monday 22. We had a heavy ride to B's. It was still more so when we came to preaching. Poor souls, the antinomian leaven brings forth death here. Some appeared hardened, others nevertheless appeared a little melted. May God help these people. I was unwell, could eat but little. I was not at home. I felt as if God had departed from this house, and was miserable until I left it. Tuesday 23. We rode to R's. Here we found people of another spirit. We had a large congregation, but very blind, deaf, and dumb. O Lord, can these dry bones live? I spoke very close, but to little purpose. May the Lord help and stand by the poor preachers who labor on this side Edisto. Wednesday 24. At Chester's and next day at P's there was a small stir. Some here have been awakened, but they lean to Calvinism, and the love of strong drink carries almost all away. My spirit was bowed down amongst them. I spoke a little, and so did Brother Watcoat. We appointed a night meeting. There came only 2 men, and they were drunk. Friday 26. There came about a dozen people to hear us at Treadwell's, to whom Brother Watcoat preached on the works of the flesh and the fruits of the Spirit. After riding 30 miles through heavy sands, we came to Dr. Fuller's. I am strongly inclined to think I am done with this road and people. They pass for Christians. A prophet of strong drink might suit them. I was clear in not receiving anything without paying for it. Saturday 27. Rode to Campbelltown and stopped at Brother G's. Since Friday the 19th, we have ridden about 160 miles. I have been under various trials and exercises, and have some dejected hours. This also shall tend to my humiliation, and work for my good. Sunday 28. I preached on 1 Timothy 1:15. I had a very still and unfeeling congregation. The inhabitants of this little town, Campbelltown, seemed to be sober and industrious, but even here I found some drunkards. Georgia, Monday, March 1. We crossed at Augusta, in Georgia, and rode to S.C. Church. I had some enlargement on Luke 4:18-19. Thence we proceeded to Briar Creek. Tuesday, 2. I preached in an old church near Waynesboro, at Wyke's in the evening, and next day at Golfin's, Old Town. The house was open and the day cold. Thursday, 4. I preached with liberty in a new church near Fan's Bridge. We have been exercised in public night and day. Frequently we have not more than 6 hours' sleep. Our horses are weary, and the houses are so crowded that at night our rest is much disturbed. Jesus is not always in our dwellings, and where he is not, a pole cabin is not very agreeable. Provisions for man and horse we have plenty of. Our journeys are about 30 miles, day by day. But under all these trials I enjoy peace and patience, and have much of the love of God. Sunday, 7. We had a crowded congregation at H's. Brother W. attempted to preach, but soon concluded. We lodged with Brother S. above the forks of Ogeechee. My mind has been much tried under so much bodily fatigue. I went to view 400 acres of land and found it not suitably situated for a seminary of learning. Came to S's, a cold place, and cold congregation there. Wednesday, 10. Our conference began at Grant's. We had preaching every day, and there were some quickenings amongst the people. Our business was conducted in peace and unanimity. The deficiencies of the preachers, who receive a salary of $64 per annum from this conference, amounted to £74 for the last year. Thursday, 11. We had a rainy day, yet a full house, and a living love feast. Some souls were converted, and others professed sanctification. I had some opening in speaking from Ezekiel 2:7. We have a prospect of obtaining 100 acres of land for every £100 we can raise and pay, for the support of Wesley and Whitfield School. On Monday we rode out to view 300 acres of land offered for the above purpose. My soul has been much tried since conference began. I must strive to keep from rising too high or sinking too low. Tuesday, 16. We set out on our journey and came to the new chapel at Bibbs Crossroads. I preached with some life and liberty and ordained Brother Bennett Maxey to the office of deacon. I spent the evening at Brother Herbert's, where lie interred the remains of dear Brother Major. I was told that a poor sinner was struck with conviction at his grave, and thought he heard the voice of God calling him to repentance. I was also told of a woman who sent for Brother Andrew to preach her funeral sermon while living. She was blessed under the word and died in peace. South Carolina, Wednesday, 17. We were kindly entertained at P.C.'s, and next day, after riding 22 miles to P.'s, we had an evening meeting and were happy with a few living souls. The Presbyterians are very kind, giving us freely whatever is needful for man and horse. I have great consolations and severe trials. Friday, 19. We had some stir, especially amongst the young people, at the Widow Bowman's, on Reedy River. Saturday, 20. Rode to M's, and finding Brother Ellis was to be at C's, we hasted to see him, and rode 20 miles, crossing Enory River, near the slaughter ground where a battle was fought in the last war. Sunday, 21. Preached to a quiet people and had a small stir. We had a meeting in the evening at Brother Smith's. Monday, 22. I feel myself unwell with a sick and nervous headache, which returns once a month, and sometimes oftener. We have traveled about 600 miles in about 3 weeks, besides the time taken up in conference. Thou, Lord, wilt have mercy, and save both man and beast. I expect Providence brought us this way, to pity and to help the people. Dear Brother and Sister S. are unspeakably kind. North Carolina, Friday, 26. Rode about 22 miles. Stopped at Colonel Graham's, dripping wet with rain. He received us, poor strangers, with great kindness, and treated us hospitably. We had awful thunder, wind, and rain. I was still unwell with the complaints that terminated the life of my grandfather Asbury, whose name I bear. Perhaps it will also be my end. We were weather-bound until Monday morning, the 29th of March. For several days I have been very sick and serious. I have been enabled to look into eternity with some pleasure. I could give up the church, the college, and schools. Nevertheless, there was one drawback. What will my enemies and mistaken friends say? Why, that he hath offended the Lord, and he hath taken him away. In the afternoon I felt somewhat better. Brother Watcoat preached a most excellent sermon on "The kingdom of God is not in word but in power. Not in sentiments or forms, but in the convincing, converting, regenerating, sanctifying power of God." I am making close application to my Bible. Reading the prophets at my leisure whilst on my journey, I met with a pious Baptist. Glory to God for what religion there is still to be found amongst all sects and denominations of people. Wednesday, 31. Rode to Gilberttown and preached at H's with some freedom, but was very unwell in the afternoon. Thursday, April 1. Rode about 50 miles through Rutherford and Burke counties. It is a day of small things here. Crossed Catawba River at Greenlee's Ford and came to our good friend White's on John's River about 8 o'clock at night. When I set off in the morning, it seemed as if I should faint by the way. I was so ill with a mixed internal complaint to which I am subject. We arrived in the very nick of time, Friday being a very rainy day, and there being no necessity that day to ride. I feel happy in the prospect of death and rest. Yet am I willing to labor and to suffer the Lord's leisure. Saturday, 3. Quarterly meeting began. Brother W. and myself both preached, and there was a reviving among both white and black, and I trust some souls were blessed. Sunday, 4. Was a serious day. None were admitted to our private meeting but members. Many spoke, and most felt the power of God. We then hasted to the Globe Chapel, where the people met, but had not patience to wait. We had a rough road and John's River to cross 20 times. I was desired to preach Sister B.'s funeral. She was formerly a Presbyterian, then a Methodist, and last of all a Christian, and there is good hope that she died in the Lord. I was resolved to fulfill her desire, and preached on 1 Corinthians 15, 56, 57, to about 8 souls. Monday, 5. We made an early move. After worming the stream for a while, we took through the Laurel Hill and had to scale the mountains, which in some places were rising like the roof of a house. We came to the head of Watauga River, a most neglected place. Here the people have had their corn destroyed by frost, and many of them have moved away. It was thus we found it in Tiger's Valley. We passed by W's, a poor lodging, and slept at the Beaver Dam in a cabin without a cover, except what a few boards supplied. We had very heavy thunder and lightning, and most hideous yelling of wolves around, with rain, which is frequent in the mountains. Tennessee, Tuesday, 6. We were compelled to ride through the rain and cross the Stone Mountain. Those who wish to know how rough it is may tread in our path. What made it worse to me was that while I was looking to see what was become of our guide, I was carried off with full force against a tree that hung across the road some distance from the ground, and my head received a very great jar, which, however, was lessened by my having on a hat that was strong in the crown. We came on to the dismal place called Roan's Creek, which was pretty full. Here we took a good breakfast on our tea, bacon, and bread. Reaching Watauga, we had to swim our horses and ourselves to cross in a canoe. Up the Iron Mountain we ascended, where we had many a seat to rest, and many a weary step to climb. At length we came to Greer's, and halted for the night. Wednesday, 7. We reached Nelson's Chapel about 1 o'clock, after riding about 18 miles. Now it is that we must prepare for danger in going through the wilderness. I received a faithful letter from Brother Poythress in Kentucky, encouraging me to come. This letter I think well deserving of publication. I found the poor preachers indifferently clad, with emaciated bodies, and subject to hard fare. Yet I hope they are rich in faith. Friday 9. After receiving great kindness from dear Sister Nelson, we came on to Brother Bull's, who wrought for us, gratis, what we wanted in shoeing our horses. Thence we went on to Brother Gott's, and to Brother P.'s, and thence, groping through the woods, to Brother Easley's, depending on the fidelity of the Kentucky people, hastening them, and being unwilling they should wait a moment for me. We crossed Holstein at Smith's Ferry, and rode 30 miles to Amy's, where we were well entertained for our money. Coming along, I complained that the people would take no pay for their food or services. That complaint has ceased. Very unwell as I was, we pushed down Holstein to the last house. Here we had no hope of company from the eastern or western side. We turned out our horses to graze, and they strayed off, so here we are anchored indeed. The unsettled state of my stomach and bowels makes labor and life a burden. We are now in a house in which a man was killed by the savages. And oh, poor creatures! They are but one remove from savages themselves. I consider myself in danger, but my God will keep me whilst thousands pray for me. Sunday 11. My soul is humbled before God, waiting to see the solution of this dark providence. The man of the house is gone after some horses supposed to be stolen by Indians. I have been near fainting, but my soul is revived again, and my bodily strength is somewhat renewed. If these difficulties, which appear to impede my path, are designed to prevent my going to Kentucky, I hope to know shortly. I spent the Sabbath at Robert Beans's. In the evening a company of 11 came to go forward. Our horses were not to be found without a great sum. Monday morning, 12. We loaded Brother Anderson's little horse with my great bags and 2 pairs smaller, 4 saddles with blankets and provender. We then set out and walked 10 miles, and our horses were brought to us, and those who brought them were pleased to take what we pleased to give. Brother A. sought the Lord by fasting and prayer, and had a strong impression that it was the will of God that I should not go with that company. Tuesday 13. We came back to A's, a poor sinner. He was highly offended that we prayed so loud in his house. He is a distiller of whiskey, and boasts of gaining 300 pounds per annum by the brewing of his poison. We talked very plainly, and I told him that it was of necessity and not of choice we were there, that I feared the face of no man. He said he did not desire me to trouble myself about his soul. Perhaps the greatest offense was given by my speaking against distilling and slaveholding. Having now been upon expenses from Friday until this day, for 4 horses and 3 men, I judged it high time to move. Thursday 15. We rode 50 miles, and next day preached at Owens's. Saturday 17. We rode on with great violence, which made me feel very serious. Sunday 18. Brother W. preached at General Russell's on the birth, character, and office of John the Baptist. Monday 19. I resolved on taking a proper dose of tartar emetic. This has wrought me well, and I hope for better health. From December 14, 1789, to April 20, 1790, we compute to have traveled 2,578 miles. Hitherto hath the Lord helped. Glory, glory to our God. Virginia. We had a good prayer meeting at General Russell's. This family is lavish in attentions and kindness. I was nursed as an only child by the good man and woman of the house, and indeed by all the family. God Almighty bless them and reward them. Thursday 22. We had a lively prayer meeting at Keywood's. Come, Lord, like thunder, and break in upon these dear young people. Friday 23. We had a very lively prayer meeting and exhortation. We trust the Lord will do something for these people before we leave the rich Holstein Valley. I feel for their state. They are settled and dwindling. I have been happy in my own soul, and have gained bodily strength. 2 weeks are now spent, one in waiting on the Kentucky business, and one, illness has prevented my improving, except that it has furnished time to publish my appointments on Clinch and Nolichucky. Saturday, 24. Many attended a prayer meeting at M. Henry's, but there was little life. Sunday, 25. Preached at General Russell's on Ezekiel 33:11. I saw, I felt, I knew that some of my congregation were touched. Monday, 26. We rode through the poor valley, calling on F., who had been sick and frightened with convictions and the fear of death. We prayed, fed our horses, and rode on to Clinch River. Tuesday, 27. We had a house well crowded, but there was but little stir among them. I felt for these dear souls, and judged that Providence was about to open a way for a circuit to be formed here in Russell County, for one preacher. Wednesday, 28. I preached at Brother B.'s, a frontier house, and a station. In time past, a person was killed here by the Indians. The people showed their zeal in purchasing 2 magazines and several hymn books. Some say nothing but whiskey will bring money, but I prove the contrary, and I give them credit. We have had cold weather and severe frosts for 2 nights past. We had a dreary ride down to the ford of Clinch, through a solitary plain. Many attended at L's. We rode down to Blackmore's station. Here the people have been forted on the north side of Clinch. Poor Blackmore has had a son and daughter killed by the Indians. They are of opinion here that the Cherokees were the authors of this mischief. I also received an account of 2 families having been killed, and of 1 female that was taken prisoner, and afterward retaken by the neighbors and brought back. Friday, 30. Crossed Clinch about 2 miles below the fort. In passing along, I saw the precipice from which Blackmore's unhappy son leaped into the river, after receiving the stroke of a tomahawk in his head. I suppose by the measure of my eye it must be between 50 and 60 feet descent. His companion was shot dead upon the spot. This happened on the 6th of April, 1789. We came a dreary road over rocks, ridges, hills, stones, and streams, along a blind, tortuous path, to Moccasin Gap and Creek, thence to Smith's Ferry across the north branch of Holstein. Here I found some lies had been told on me. Feeling myself innocent, I was not moved. Saturday, May 1. Rested. Next day, Sabbath, I preached to a hardened people. Monday, 3. I preached at Brother Payne's, and had some encouragement among our Maryland people. Sabbath night, I dreamed the guard from Kentucky came for me, and mentioned it to Brother W. In the morning I retired to a small stream, for meditation and prayer, and whilst there saw 2 men come over the hills. I felt a presumption that they were Kentucky men, and so they proved to be. They were Peter Massey and John Clark, who were coming for me with the intelligence that they had left 8 men below. After reading the letters and asking counsel of God, I consented to go with them. End of section 8. Recording by Brian Keenan.